we get started, I just wanted to give you all a little background on everyone sitting up here today. So starting off, we have Bob Ziobro. Bob was born and raised in New Jersey and drafted into the U.S. Army on March 5th of 1969 while attending the University of Texas at El Paso. He went through basic training at AIT and Fort Dix, New Jersey, and he also trained at Fort Benning, Georgia. He arrived in Vietnam in November of 1969 and left in October of 1970, at which point he separated from the Army. Bob has a graduate degree from the University of Texas at El Paso. He worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services as a wildlife refuge manager along the Gulf Coast of Florida for 10 years. He then transferred to the National Marine Fisheries Service, where he worked with endangered whales and salmon. Bob also served the agency's Native American liaison for 10 years, which he says was the highlight of his career. Bob started going to WCC in July of 2021 and has been volunteering and participating in programs ever since. Next up, we have Keith. Now, Keith, please forgive me. What is your hometown called?
It's Oglethorpe.
Oglethorpe.
Yeah.
So Keith is a native of Oglethorpe, Georgia. He retired from the U.S. Army in 2011 as a colonel with nearly 27 years of service on active duty in various scientific, staff, and leadership positions. Keith's last assignment was from 2009 to 2011 as the Deputy Commander for the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases at Fort Detrick, Maryland. In that role, he provided leadership for the day-to-day operations of the Department of Defense's lead laboratory and the nation's largest biocontainment laboratory for development of medical solutions and countermeasures against global endemic diseases and biodefense threats. After retirement from active Army service, he worked in various corporate roles in biomedical research as a senior program manager, advisor, and consultant. In keeping with his strong belief of public service, he is active in local community, church, and veteran service organizations. Right. Next, we have Maya. Maya was born and raised in Germany. Through marriage to an American soldier stationed in Germany, she moved to the United States in 2013. The following year, she joined the U.S. Army as a financial management technician, becoming a citizen. Through her time in service, Maya completed her bachelor's degree in business administration at the UMGC. In 2021, Maya was medically retired with PTSD as a result of MST. In 2022, she and WC's Buff were matched. Buff became the youngest of three puppy sisters. Currently, Maya is pursuing her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and earlier this year, her family welcomed their son, Nathan, to the pack.
You can hear him back.
Next up, we have Molly O'Connell. Molly is a retired major from the United States Air Force, and she served for 20 years. Currently, Molly has her service dog, Bryce, who graduated and was paired with last year in 2024. He looks really comfy right now. Molly enlisted in the Air Force after high school and spent 20 years serving her country. During the first 10 years of her military career, she was enlisted in mortuary services. She then went on to get her nursing degree and became an officer, where she spent an additional 10 years caring for others. All right, and for our final introduction, we have Mare. Mare Liefeld is Warrior Canine Connection's Assistant Director of Mission-Based Trauma Recovery Programs. He began training future service dogs in a volunteer capacity in 2004 and went on to train service dogs in a professional capacity in 2016. Mare's primary motivation for working in this industry has always been the desire to serve individuals with disabilities through highly skilled service animals. When Mare first came to WCC in 2020, they were blown away by the organization's unique mission model, using service dog training as an animal-assisted therapeutic intervention for all members of the military community. Mare knew immediately that Warrior Canine Connection's program was where he wanted to be and joined the team as a service dog training instructor, with a primary focus on delivering MBTR training sessions to veterans and active duty. Mayor began overseeing WCC's MBTR programs in 2022, and they now have the honor of supporting WCC's no-fail mission nationwide. So, that wraps up our quick bios. I'd like to open it up to everyone, and is there anything else you'd like to share before we jump in?
I don't think so.
All right. I think we turned this off. All right, so to start off, Mayor, would you like to start by explaining the MBTR program?
Yeah, so at Warrior Canine Connection, we have a really unique twofold mission, as many of you are aware of. So we place service dogs with veterans at no charge to them, but what's really important to us is to ensure that every single one of our dogs has the opportunity to work with dozens of veterans, active duty service members, and military family members prior to that opportunity to be placed with a veteran as a service dog. So in our mission-based trauma recovery program, we enlist the assistance of those military-connected folks in working on all sorts of different skills with the dogs. It can be as basic as working with little puppies, providing them with some socialization in their early days, all the way to very advanced things such as like taking the dogs on really complex public outings, practicing their behaviors on escalators, teaching them their advanced skill sets like retrieving items such as canes, cell phones, prosthetics, keys, and then of course one of our primary functions would be teaching those dogs their stress cue interruptions. So recognizing physical signs of stress and being able to come up and interact with the veteran who is in need of support. So in our MBTR program, our goal is really to be able to give everyone an opportunity to give back to other members of the military community by volunteering. It's also a really helpful avenue to maybe reach those folks who aren't necessarily so open to support for themselves, wherever they are in life. Maybe it's better for them to be engaging in something beneficial for them through the source of volunteer service, right? Folks might have things like survivor's guilt coming back from their time in the military, and maybe they're struggling to request that help for themselves. So we've got this avenue where they can come in, provide that resource for other people, but then we also know the beauty and the power of working with these dogs and what impacts that can have on folks. So at the end of the day, they ultimately get a really awesome benefit of being able to increase their sense of purpose and have an opportunity to reconnect with their communities more.
Thank you. Now to open it up, I believe most, if not all of you, have participated in MBTR. Would any of you be interested in sharing your experience with that, what you learned, anything that surprised you about the program?
I'll talk forever, so I'll just let them go first. No? Well, I didn't.
I could try to start here. Never accused of not speaking softly, but what I became involved, Mara was the first person that I got to know, and her dog at the time, Buzz. And the thing that is, it's always evolving, it's always changing, and there's different programs that come up or opportunities that are offered. And I don't know how many of these things I've participated in, and I don't live that far away, so I'm fortunate in that way. I just go and I participate. And I have a dog to take now, and when I was placed with Tina, I said, well, I guess you won't be seeing me very often anymore. And they said, what do you mean? You're coming back and you're gonna bring Tina, which I have been doing, and she likes going there on vacation. She gets her pumpkin Kong, and she knows when it's time to go home when she's finished with it. So, it works out well. But like I said, it's ever evolving, and they're always listening and watching people. So it's not a stagnant program by any stretch of the imagination. And one of the things I put in my bio was working with Native Americans I went to a lot of meetings. If you ever get a chance to work with Native Americans, please take it. It's an opportunity you will not regret. But you go to meetings, and you know how a lot of meetings you get people talking over each other? Well, they have what they call a talking stick. And it's literally a stick. Sometimes it's a sacred item, and sometimes it's just something they bring. However, this is the ultimate one. This is your talking stick. And so it just cracked me up when I was sitting here thinking about it. Yeah, that would have been interesting. And if you don't use it as a stick, you can get somebody's attention. I'll shut up.
So, is it on? Oh, sorry. Good, you didn't hear me cough. I started working with Warrior Canine Connection when they were located in Brookville. And back then, it was kind of a limited operation just because of the size of the facility. But as they moved and as their space grew, so did their mission opportunities. And I was afforded the opportunity to begin to work as an independent handler. So Mayor and I started training with Mayor, and over the years, it's just grown into something that has become integral to my existence. My family, we're all military. My wife was in the Army, and she has a dog named for her. If you want to go to the Wall of Fame, you can look up Mary Jean, and she is placed, by the way, with a female veteran. But my son is also serving in the Army. So we have a very strong sense that we have a debt of obligation to the country, our community, the state, fellow veterans. And so for us, this is a way that we can fulfill that obligation through service, especially to our brothers and sisters who are in the armed forces and who are now in veteran status. So it's been a wonderful experience. And you know, to paraphrase something from Reagan, who talked about horses, I usually say, you know, the best thing for the inside of a person is the outside of a lab. So, you know, you can take that and think about it as much as you want, but for me, it's almost as much therapy for me to go there and work with the animals and ultimately see their progression. And it's a deep, you know, sort of sense of satisfaction that at the end of the day, I can think that maybe I had a small role in their development and their placement with a deserving veteran. I think they're recording.
Oh, do you need to?
That's fine. No, it's okay.
Okay, I'll try.
As long as the people in the back can hear you.
So, my story's a little bit deeper, but I'm okay talking about it now. So I was originally, had a fractured spine and I was paralyzed. And I wanted to commit suicide because I didn't know what to do with that anymore. I didn't want my husband to have to deal with me in a wheelchair and taking care of me all the time. So at Walter Reed, I told them that I wanted, I kept telling them I wanted to be euthanized, be put to sleep. And the psychiatrist came in and said, "What would make you stay?" And I said, "Well, my husband will find somebody else to make him happy that he can hike with now. But tell my dogs I didn't forget about them." And they said, "So you love animals?" I said, "I wish I would have done something with animals, maybe been a vet and not just a nurse." And they said, "Oh my God, we got the best thing for you. It's called Warrior Canine Connection. And they train service dogs for veterans just up the road." I'm like, "What do you mean? I've lived here for this many years and I didn't know about this?" So she said, "I think it'd be a good idea for you to go out and do that." So I went out to Warrior Canine. I did MBTR once, and then I did it again, and then I signed up again. And Mayor's like, "You know, you're doing pretty good. We could do some independent handling at this point." So that's what Bob and I go out there and do now. They'll give us a dog. It was almost like I was so happy to get Bryce, but on the other hand, I was like, I felt like I was gonna like lose the family out there. Like, okay, well, we gave you a dog, like, you know, bye. Like, I wasn't sure what was going on after that. And I wanted to continue my service because this is what kept me alive, and this is what I want to do with my life, is talk about how amazing this program is and how many people it can save. So I did the MBTR, which was monumental. Obviously, in my case, I'm still here, and the independent handling has kept me going, and it really still gives veterans a sense of purpose. Because once you leave the military and you leave that camaraderie of knowing a lot about that kind of deployment and that kind of people around you, you don't want to lose that. So it's a continued way of service, and it's giving back to everybody else.
Thank you. All right, so now that we've heard those, Maya, I want to start with you for this next one. So in your bio, you were placed with Buff after you were released for PTSD. So I was wondering, how does Buff impact your life? I'd love to hear about that.
Oh, so much. I think actually she impacts my husband's life a lot because he used to be my service dog and he had to come along to everything I did. And like now he gets to, I still bring him along, but it's like, you can wait outside, I'm good, I have Buff. So no, it's huge. I mean, she flew to Germany with me. She was with me when I gave birth to my son. So like there is no experience that I make that Buff isn't a part of. So for me, I can't imagine. I was lucky enough to know about the Warrior Canine Connection while I was in the military, and so I was never out of the military without having Buff because I applied while I was still on active duty, and we kind of knew the timeline of it. So when I got out, I was pretty much immediately placed with her. And so I never really started in the MBTR or anything like that. I did want a puppy parent in my defense, and then I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I was like, actually, it'd be nice if I could have one of those dogs now. So for me, I think it's just the thing of never being alone. Like, it doesn't matter where you go or what you do, she's always with me. That I think really impacts me the most. And my husband being allowed to do other things now.
Amazing. Do we want to hear about Bryce and Tina as well?
Sure, you want to go first? Okay, well, I got paired with Bryce last year, and honestly, I was doing MBTR a gazillion times with Mare because she's amazing, and I never put in for a dog for myself. And you hear this a lot from other people. Veterans do not want to ask for help. It's almost like we're too proud to say that we need help. So I just went out there and did MBTR, and I was like, I'm not going to apply for a dog. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of veterans that need it more than I do. And then finally, I didn't even realize how much these service dogs actually did for people until I worked with Mare. I was like, wait, hold up. They can wake you up when you have a nightmare. Come on. Like, I had no idea that this stuff went on, right? And so after doing MBTR, I started going out there, and I was like, I had a nightmare last night, and then I had another one, and then I'd be like, well, I'm learning how to walk again, and wow, this would be cuter than a cane, like. So I finally applied myself, but it took the MBTR really helped to know what they can do for you, because before then I honestly was like, well, they're just companions, but they're really not. The stuff he does for me, I can put, he's a larger boy because he can help me off the toilet, he helps me off of chairs, he helps me off the couch. He'll go get my leg for me if I need him to go get my leg for me. Like things that you would never think of until you have that dog yourself. It's amazing.
Well, my situation was, was similar. I was out there, I went out for a PTSD study to start, and just by doing what we were doing, it was kind of interesting. I don't even remember, Deb was the nurse that was administering it, and would meet out there once a week, and then every fourth week, I think it was, when they would outfit me with the heart monitor and the dog with the monitor too, and we would go out and just do our thing, and then they would take the monitors off of us, and never did see what happened with that data, but it was kind of interesting doing that. And then I kept coming back, and actually Mare came up and said, why don't you apply for a military family support dog? And I'm actually, I can't say I'm sure I could have qualified for either a PTSD or mobility dog, but came along and applied. And in the interim, I started to sit dogs. take them home on the weekend, and or like the holidays coming up, they like to empty out the kennel so the dogs have someplace to go and stuff. It was fun. One time I had a yellow lab during the day, and I don't remember what it was. I came back, I got a black lab that afternoon, and the same people saw me at night. And I had the yellow lab, and then I had the black lab, and they looked at me and they said, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh, this is the nighttime dog." and you know, I couldn't think of anything smarter than that. But I was single, and you reminded me when you were telling the old line story. There was a dog named Slick. Slick is a nickname of Sergeant Slack. And people would hear Slick, and you know, guy, he's a wise guy or something like that. No, Sergeant Slack was in the boat with George Washington when they crossed the Delaware. And that kind of sets people back a little bit. So, you know, they're looking, at that point, they were looking for names or people to name them after. And I guess the Daughters of the American Revolution probably submitted his name. But, you know, you have all of this history with them. And I applied, and I actually sat Tina twice before I was placed with her. And, gee, it's a good fit. And I think that's the hardest thing, when people put in the application. It's not like you put in the application and there's 10 people ahead of you, so you get the 11th dog. It doesn't work that way, because they're looking at you, they're looking at the dog. And I don't know if I had an advantage, because I used to sit the dogs, and I used to take notes. And I knew I wouldn't remember what to tell the trainer, so I put them in the computer. And I knew when I come back with the dog, I'd hand them a piece of paper of my experiences. You know, the dog did this, didn't do this, listened to this, reacted this way. But, you know, it was fun to help people, and the trainers out there are phenomenal. And then I ended up being placed with Tina, good to your point, and we've been 2 years ago now. So, you know, and she's just shy of 4.5, even though she's got her gray beard already. Somebody made a joke that it was from living with me, but I'll just let that one slide. So that's how Tina feels.
So before we open up for some questions, and Lillian's gonna come up and also ask some questions, as we know, these dogs are incredibly intelligent. What experiences have you had that make you realize how smart they are and how much they can read into your emotions and the feelings that you're having? Has anyone had experiences that you're like, wow, this dog really gets me?
Actually, I just had one this morning. I had a completely horrific nightmare, and all of a sudden I went like this, and I woke up and Bryce was laying across my chest. And I said, "Okay, thanks, good buddy." And then I started to doze back off, and he licked my face until I sat up to make sure I didn't fall back asleep again. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, just this morning. I've been with him a year, and every day I'm still like, oh my gosh, he totally gets me. He follows me to the bathroom. He, you know, hands me my leash when I get off the toilet. Like things like you wouldn't think a dog would think of. It still amazes me every day.
Well, I knew I was in trouble. You have a vocabulary of 65 words, is it now? 75? Well, I had to learn 12 new words. So I mean, it's just to show you, it's not that you use all of those words. You end up, it's probably a little too harsh of a, so you customize the dog. They learn you, they know what to do. Sometimes the leash will fall off of my lap or something, or she'll get, when she wants to leave, she'll let you know. And then she just gets up, gives you the leash, and says, you know, this time. So, you know, they know. And yes, you do, we're talking about it. So, and she's a leaner, and she doesn't sit like a lady, but other than that, she likes her treats, and you give her one, and she says, "I ate that good, give me another one." You know, she constantly being rewarded. But I can't put a finger on something like you're talking about, and sometimes it's unconscious when, you know, you start tapping your foot, and the dog, she comes up and puts it. Or one time I was just sitting there like this, You see it? Yeah, you ready to go? And she came up and just, separated my hands because that's one of the stress signals is ringing your hands. And if you ever put your head in your hands, you better be ready because
All four.
The nose
dogs.
and if you wear glasses, you're out of luck. But it's, they're trained to do that, and it's to break your train of thought and whatever, you get your focus back on now instead of what you might be thinking of. And my entrance was a lot different. I was, as it said, I left the service in 1970. So there was 50 years before I became involved with this. And when I got out, if there was an organization like this, I'm sure not aware of it. I don't think there's anything that's going on today that was available back when I separated it. So.
Oh.
It's working when I will close it.
For me, I think the real amazing thing is like, they do training, and when Buff sees her trainer, she goes immediately back and, there's the streets, let me do all the tricks and get the phone and the leash and I can do all this. But sometimes they do these things where it seems like they're misbehaving. And when you think about it, I tell her to lay down and I tell her to lay down and she's like, no, but actually you need me right now. And the more stressed I am, the more I feel like she's misbehaving when she's trying to come to me. And for me, experiences have been amazing where I can tell that she can differentiate between everyday life pain or stuff where she's like, oh yeah, that's just the norm. And then when I get hurt and she's like, oh yeah, something is actually wrong. So I do Taekwondo, and 3 times a week she lays there and she sleeps for an hour. And one time I got hurt and she, from asleep, got up and walked up to the edge of the mat and looked at me. And the same thing in labor. She was like, okay, that's what we're doing. She was pretty chill until there were complications. She's like, okay, that's not normal. And then she started trying to come to me. And that's where I feel like they're so incredibly intelligent, how they can differentiate between things you teach them and stuff that they intuitively know, that you yourself don't know, that they know before you do. That for me is the amazing, miraculous thing in what they do.
Anything else to add? All right. Lillian, do you want to come on? There are some direct questions, if you'd like.
Hi, I'm Lillian McLaughlin. I'm the Vice President of the UMD WCC Club. And I just thought we'd go through a couple more questions, but I wanted to start off by saying, does anybody in the audience have something that they would like to ask at this moment? Yeah.
I hate to say two-part question because it sounds like so crazy to say that, but how many dogs are in the kennel / training at a given time? And then the second part of the question is, what are the requirements for being able to watch one of the dogs when there's holidays or things like that? Are there people that you have in your network that you go to bring these dogs to? How does that work?
So we have upwards of 100, 120 dogs in training at any given time throughout the year. However, usually only about 25 or so of those dogs are actually residing in our kennels. So we have volunteer puppy raisers, like the folks who are raising here on campus, who commit to take the dogs from anywhere from 8 weeks of age up to about 18 to 20 months of age. But then when those dogs are in that 18 to 20 months of age range, they return to our headquarters for a 3-month period, generally. Buff stayed for 6 because she loved me so much. But they, when they're there, we sometimes might need additional assistance with sitting. So that is a wonderful thing to talk to my colleague Molly Elmore about after we finish up here today. We have an online application where you can fill that out for starters. We can kind of get a little bit more of an idea of your home situation and lifestyle and stuff, and figure out which types of dogs, what ages and things like that would be the best fit for you. And then you can get added to our pool of sitters after you just get a little bit of training in how to best support them.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
A next question that I have is, I lost it. How has being a part of this program affected your sense of community or connection with other veterans?
So, I think when you separate, it was said earlier, when you separate from the service, all of a sudden, that network of people that you worked with, all of a sudden it evaporates. Now, not that you don't keep in touch with them, right? But you also lack a sense of purpose at times. You know, we say in the military, mission first, people always. And so we're always very focused on those two items. And the opportunity to get back into an environment where we're working to do something for, you know, our fellow veterans enhances that sense of purpose for us. Because at least for me, in my experience, knowing that, like I said earlier, somewhere down the line, you know, I will have had an opportunity to be a part of that dog's training and experience, and knowing that it's going to be of great value to that veteran with whom they're placed is extremely gratifying. And also in terms of like other veteran service organizations and so forth, many of them actually contribute financially to the support of the Warrior Canine Connection. Because all of this just doesn't happen with fairy dust. It takes money, right? And so they all contribute to a degree. And it's been my pleasure to work with our American Legion post in Damascus, where I live, to help ensure that they contribute annually to the mission of the Warrior Canine Connection program. And it's been very rewarding for a number of our guys who actually go out there and participate in events as well.
Do you want another answer? Okay. So when you have a service dog, they very quickly adopt your friend or circles for you. Like, they approach people. And the way I came to the Warrior Canine Connection is because my neighbors, the Foliantas, had cadence back then, and she kept showing up at my door. She would come and knock at my door and be like, "Hey, Miss Maria, how are you today? Let me check in with you." And so we kind of became friends because Cadence was really drawn to me and to my dogs, and then, you know, they kind of bring you along, and I have that same experience with Puff now. They're drawn to certain people, and you just talk to them because they approach you because you have a dog, or your dog is approaching them, and there's this sense where you're like, if your dog likes someone, you probably do too, that you kind of trust their decision-making process a little bit too. So a lot of my friends now are actually people that Buff picked. So this like community is just created around having a service dog, which I think is just beautiful when you have like a friend circle that all are just there because they love the puppy.
Does that work with relatives too?
So I left mine in Germany, so I'm not sure.
Any other sense of community that anybody wants to talk about? Another question is, what is something that you wish other people knew about service dogs? Specifically this group. Or
Well, this group probably knows that they just don't happen. I mean, there's a lot of work, and the cost behind it is tremendous. And you know, you start out with seeing eye dogs, and then you have various levels below that for the service dogs and everything. So, and like, it's not fairy dust. There needs to be a contribution, and when there's an event at WCC, they go out and they ask for cases of water. They ask for, you know, ices to freeze and stuff like that. It's not like you got to sign your car away or your house or your mortgage. It's just every little bit helps. And I think people realize, if they realize that, and then they come to these events, they can become more involved in the community that everybody's been talking about, that you're asking about too. And again, I don't know if I would have participated in something like this when I first got out of the service. It was a entirely different time and different situation, but, you know, I'm not a joiner, but yet I'm here, so that's it.
I forgot what I was going to say now. I think one of the most important things is that getting people out there, getting veterans out there like this. I think that's honestly the best way to get the word out is still, no matter how much AI or whatever technology you have, just getting the word out and being able to see the dogs at work and hear veterans and hear the actual stories about how these are being used. You know, they're not pets as much as we love them more than life itself. Don't tell my husband that, but it's still a working dog, and it's still doing something to help us recover. Like I always say that veterans can recover from, you know, physical ailments. Mental ailments are always going to be there. They just try to give us the tools in therapy to try to live with what we've been through. But this is the best coping mechanism that we can get the word out for our military. And I do want to put one thing in there and say, I don't know if you guys know, but veterans there's a lot of places, networks, where veterans can get dogs from. They're all over the country. A lot of them will give you the veteran dogs at no cost if needed. However, the reason I so believe in Warrior Canine Connection, and the reason I want to do this every day, so keep calling me Molly, is because I've never seen a company an organization tailor the dogs to the vets like I've seen. I travel with Bryce every single week for a Wounded Warrior Project. I just came back from Nashville last week. People that have other service dogs are like, oh my gosh, like your dog does that, and your dog does that. And it's like they tailor the dog to, if you're not a vet that can walk a half a mile a day, you know, with the dog, then they're going to give you somebody like Bryce who just wants to be lazy and be like, let me know when you got to get off the couch, you know what I mean? Or they have dogs tailored to, hey, I'm going to get up and walk 3 times a day. Well, there's going to be a dog for that. They tailor so much to how your life is lived as a new veteran with PTSD and a physical ailment. It's not just, okay, we got all these dogs that can do this, this, and this, give it to the next veteran. And that's why it takes 2 full years to wait. And I was willing to wait to get, you know, top of the line from these guys.
So one great thing you should always look at when you meet a dog is, once you have the opportunity, go back and read the history of the namesake. And I want to give you an example. We adopted a honorably discharged service dog, Edme. She's a yellow lab. She's now 15 months old, I think. And so she didn't quite make the cut, but we had applied to get a release dog from WCC. And but we didn't know much about it until we read the bio online. Turns out Edme is named for Marie Edme LaRue. She was one of the original Hello Girls from World War I. And if you don't know the story, I'll make it short, but bottom line is, during World War I, men could not operate switchboards effectively. And it was one of the few professions here in the United States at the time for women outside of the home where they excelled. And General Pershing recruited 250 women, and they went overseas and served on the front lines and in the rear as switchboard operators. They had to do everything the men had to do. They wore uniforms, they had training and weapons and all of that. And at the end of the war, they were told that, 1, they weren't veterans, 2, that the benefits would only go to men. And for 60 years, and remember this too, this is a little bit of another reason why this is significant. Those 250 women so impressed President Wilson at the time during the Treaty of Versailles negotiations that he changed his opinion about women's right to vote. So those 250 women were essential in getting the right to vote for women. But they went and languished for 60 years until under the Carter administration, President Carter signed legislation granting them status as veterans. In fact, Marie Edme LaRue Sebastian, who is buried at Fort Lincoln Cemetery near Bladensburg, did not have a marker on her gravesite until the last 2 years. And it was placed in a VA ceremony. Through Edme, we actually were introduced to Catherine Bourguin, who is the surviving granddaughter of Marie Edme LaRue. And we've used that relationship to educate others about the Hello Girls. And now they are waiting for the U.S. Mint to complete the work on the Congressional Gold Medal for all the Hello Girls. So it's a fascinating story about America's first women soldiers. But you would never know that just to meet the dog. So there are interesting stories attached to each one of these dogs. So, you know, collect the cards, go home, read about them online on the Hall of Fame. But it's really important to carry on the memory and the legacy of those veterans, and it's being done with these service animals.
A follow-up question earlier, as Molly mentioned about how the dogs, like, they find the specialization and the matching, and I was curious if, Mayor, if you had any experience or knew the process and how you see that come up as the dogs are being trained.
You're good. Yeah, so what we really try to do at Warrior Canine Connection is make sure that we establish a very strong relationship with the veterans who are coming to us seeking a service dog. Our application process is not just a situation where someone's, you know, filling out a piece of paper, sending us a couple letters from a doctor, and then we just try to find a dog that on paper meets the needs that is outlined in the application. There's a lot of face-to-face interviews, phone interviews, and then of course we do have opportunities, even if someone's not participating in our MBTR program, to come out, spend actual time with us, and get hands-on experiences working with the dogs. When I am working with someone who I know is on our client list and they're waiting for a service dog, even if I'm working with them with a pup that's, you know, 5 months old and we have no idea what their career path is going to be, and odds of that specific dog being that specific veteran service dog are fairly low, I'm still paying very, very close attention to the interaction style. You know, what type of tone of voice does this person have when they communicate with the dog? Do they like when a dog licks them? You know, what interactions bring them joy versus what interactions might seem to cause them a little bit of stress there? And so all of those little pieces ultimately, you know, get added into this great big profile that we have for all these individuals, and we all get together as a team to kind of consult on our experiences about individual veterans. And then of course we know the dogs quite well. You know, they're raised in our network, our trainers are working with them day in and day out. And so it's through having that really deep connection and ongoing experiences, getting to know those people far beyond just what the doctor wrote on a referral letter, that makes us be able to have that unique, you know, catering to the individual's needs.
That's really cool. Last chance, anybody from the audience, you have any questions before I ask our last one?
I do. So how have you guys seen, like, having that dog in your house and around your family impact your family and not just you?
That sounds like a you.
Yeah.
Mine's very quick. Mine's actually kind of funny because they know who they're a service dog for. Even though they still love everybody in the family, they're still a master. So my husband's always like, why isn't he coming when I call him? And I can say, Bryce here, he'll come run and he'll be like, oh, really? Like, so he gets a little offended, but for me, I'm kind of like, oh my God, he's mine. Like he's there for me. So he'll go around and say, hi to everybody. He might hang out with them on the couch a little bit, but if he sees me trying to get off the couch because I have to use the restroom, he's like, hey, I gotta go. Like, mom's over here trying to get off the couch. And he'll bolt. So it's really amazing. And what I do is a cue, some veterans don't want their service dogs touched at all. It can make them anxious and set off their PTSD, which I totally get. That's why everybody should be asking, can I pet your dog? Now, for me, what I started doing in training on was, I think I did it with Mary, I'm not sure, but it was like, I wanted him to be able to say hi to people, and get him out there. So what I do is I say, Bryce, say hi, and I point to the person I want him to go up to. So if I'm in an airport and people are like, oh, and one person says, can I pet your dog? I'll say, Bryce, go say hi, and I'll point to that person. And he'll go over there and stand and sit in front of that person and let them pet him. If anybody else tries to reach their hand out, he goes like this and looks at me. Like, you gonna point to her, should I say hi or not? It's pretty amazing.
If you look at statistics of PTSD and like divorce rates, relationships suffer a lot when you have PTSD. And for me, having been divorced previously and largely due to PTSD, that was a really important factor in having a service dog. And she does a lot in making me be able to communicate more effectively and to manage stress in a way where I'm not letting it out on the people around me. And I think that's part of like the hardest stuff, is that the people whom are closest to you just catch the most of it. So as far as family is concerned, I think it's literally like what can make the difference between staying in a relationship or ending up not having contact with your children, having drug abuse and alcoholism issues, being divorced, losing your job, being suicidal as a result of all of that. So if you look at statistics, it's pretty bad for PTSD long term, and these service dogs, I think, make a huge difference in how you can interact with your family members and children. That makes it safer for them as well, because it impacts the people around you.
So there's a great anecdote here. When my son, who's a lieutenant in the Army, just spent 15 months overseas in a combat zone. He returned in August, and we met him at his welcome home ceremony at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Shortly thereafter, he was able to come home on leave. And he made it very clear the first thing that he wanted to do and the first thing he wanted to see when he arrived at BWI was Edme. It wasn't mom or dad. He wanted to see Edme. And in fact, in a very short amount of time, it was interesting to watch just how quickly they bonded and how quickly he seemed to relax with her presence around. So he's coming home for Thanksgiving, and the first thing he said is, I'm coming home to see the dog, right? So we know where we fit in the hierarchy of things anymore.
Anything else? Well, I wanted to end on a fun question of just one quick thing about your service dog or the MBTR program or WCC that brings you the most joy.
Talking to you guys and getting the word out. Honestly, nothing brings me more joy than being able to talk about what we do and what it means to me. And I like to go around and open up. I can open up now and because I have him, and tell everybody my story and not get more anxious about it, because I have him there and he's not going to judge.
I love it when other people are open up. A lot of men cry when they pet the dog.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I'm fine, and the dogs just know, But I really love that when people can have a better day because they met us that day.
It's kind of what Maya said. They're trained not to go and talk to people. However, they know what they want to do, and they'll do what they can get away with a lot of times, and people will be better for it. But what we're talking about, what Molly said, I was amazed at how many people actually know dog etiquette. When you go out there, they ask you if they can pet your dog or talk to your dog or something like that. And if the people don't do that, you don't talk to them. you know, they have to learn, but I was amazed at how many people actually come up and ask if they could talk to the dog. So, but going back to WCC, and the people there, and always seeing smiles. And you know it's always not smile time, but they smile at you, say, hi, how you doing? And I don't know how many people know my name, but everybody knows Tina.
100%.
If you have not been out to Boys to visit the headquarters, you need to do that. It needs to be on your list of things to do in the short term. And I don't know what your preference is in terms of religion, but there is something about the divine when you go out there and you look across that pastoral setting and the sun is setting and you're walking a dog. I mean, if that doesn't make you believe in a creator, I'm not certain what will. It's just heavenly out there.
Good.
I was just gonna say, I really love seeing the relationships form in our MBTR program, both with the veterans and the dogs, and then also the veterans with each other and other people. Something that really sticks out to me, one of the locations that we deliver this program at is a community veteran service center up in Frederick County. And it's not uncommon, you know, for vets to come into that space, and the first time I meet with them, there's dozens of different providers in this facility, lots of different veterans there, and they might be like really just focused on, okay, I gotta get to where I'm going, I'm gonna meet with this one person, that's what I know what I'm doing. And what I find really cool is within a week or two of meeting with me and working with the dog, those people are almost always walking around that building, introducing the dog they're working with to every single person that they see. And that's just such an incredible change to watch, that through this bond with a dog, you know, they're able to then build their confidence in engaging with all of these other members of the military community and also other service providers that might be able to assist them further. And that's just so neat to see.
I just have one more thing I want to say about everything depends. Veterans have so many different mental and physical ailments that they deal with, right? So there are some veterans that don't want people to pet their dogs, right? And we respect that because it feels like it brings attention to them. For me, it's helped my anxiety because when I'm walking through some places, they're all staring at Bryce being like, oh, what a cute dog, and it takes the eyes off me. So it makes my anxiety less. So it's going to depend all on veterans, how the veterans have dealt with their PTSD and the kind of coping mechanisms that they've learned. But these guys are amazing at working with that in all realms. Because I was the kind of person, that was my funny story to end with, this patch that's on here that says Surf for Soft Working. I was like, oh, he's so cute, I just want everybody to pet him. And they're like, Molly, the first time you go through the airport, you're gonna regret this. Sure enough, I bought it on Amazon and had it mailed to the hotel because it was like too much at one time. But now it takes you know, the pressure off me to talk to people because they'll come up and ask questions about him, and I don't have to explain my story anymore.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. We're very grateful to hear your stories, and thank you everyone for joining us. Round of applause.